Okay, my name is Ted, and I am from the East Coast. I'm 71 years old, and I'm now in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
And obviously, I'm Jim. I look similar to Ted. We're not related, and I'm from lowland Detroit, Michigan, and I retired in northern Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. So here we are.
Okay, I have spent my career as a teacher. I was a self-defense teacher, martial arts teacher, studio instructor, ran an organization, etc. Still, and there are still parts of that organization that function, and there's some dysfunctional ones. And then I retired from that and into snowboarding. And I taught snowboarding for the last dozen years, and now we've retired again. I finally hit that magic age of past 70, and we just ride for fun.
Okay, so I kind of went into the military service probably at about 18, 1 week after graduating from high school, and ended up wanting to get into the underwater demolition teams, and eventually did tours with them. So obviously parachuting, jumping out of planes, doing all the G.I. Joe action figure stuff for a number of years. At the same time, I was able to get into teaching skiing in the Special Warfare Organization. So when I retired, I thought, well, why not continue? But snowboarding took over for skiing. So that's what I've been doing for the last 20-some years. How did I get into winter and why is it funny? Well, when I was 3 years old, one Christmas, I got all my Christmas presents in Indiana, and I went outside to play with them, my fire truck. Beautiful fire truck. I sat on it and had a great time, went inside. That night it snowed, about 12 inches. I got up the next morning, I didn't know where any of my Christmas presents were. That was my start of winter experience. My aunt said, they're outside where you left them. I went out and went, they're not there. So that was funny, all right? That's got me into winter right then and there.
Yeah. My sense of humor is dark, so
Close your eyes.
the things that I find funny are like, yeah, they're dark. Yeah. And I'll give you a reason for that. This is a funny story. I had an older brother, and when we were younger, my parents were driving, and we were driving somewhere, and we stopped at a gas station, and I went to the bathroom, and they left. And I guess, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, my mother noticed.
The Ted wasn't in the car.
No, she didn't notice I wasn't in the car. She noticed it was quiet in the back seat. And she asked my brother where I was. That's interesting in itself. And he told them that I was back at the gas station where they left me. And they came back and got me. Didn't bother me
today.
Didn't bother me at all. Yes, and now I'm in northern Idaho. Yeah, that was somewhere in, who knows, that was probably Connecticut or something. Yeah.
Your parents lost you.
Oh, I got a better one than that, man. So, first grade, my mother sent me to school, and I arrived at school, and the teacher is calling out the names of all the students, and you take your seat as your name is called. And she goes through the entire class, and I heard my last name, but I hadn't heard my first name. So I thought, oh, there's somebody here related to me. And I stayed where I was, and finally, after the whole class was seated, she said, and what's your name? And I said, my name's Ted. And she goes, oh, you're Edward. And I said, no, I'm Ted. And she goes, no, you're Edward, and that's your last name. And we argued about it. This is my first day in school ever. And when I got home for lunch, I went to my mom and I said, the teacher told me my name isn't Ted. She told me my name is Edward. And my mother said, yes, that's true. I just never told you that. And I was 6 at that time, so I got a new identity at 6.
Okay, a crazy thing happened to me one day on the drop zone. Took my kids out to watch me parachute. And I went up, jumped out of the plane, fell into the clouds, and pulled my ripcord, and suddenly, boom, I found myself enveloped in the guy below me canopy.
Oh.
So it was coming up. So I was starting to fall into his canopy, which was a sure sign of death. So I walked off of it the best I could. It wrapped around my arm, which caused his chute to stop working, and I yelled to him, cut away. So he cut his chute away. I threw his parachute away. I hit the ground, and I said to the kids, did you see what just happened? And they went, no. And I said, well, good thing, because God meant for me to be able to talk to you today. Otherwise, it wouldn't be important now. It would be a tragedy.
Wow. My spare time, I pace a lot, I think. I practice my martial arts constantly, and my benefit. And then in the summertime I ride a motorcycle, and I enjoy that. I spend a lot of time with that, so I wander about and ride. And then the rest of my time is I snowboard. I want to snowboard. That's what I want to do.
So much like Ted, my off time is all about body and fitness as best I can, because I want to continue this channel, and if I don't do that, whatever. But I took up skateboarding this summer, and that almost ended the channel on a couple of times where things didn't go as planned. So if you're planning to skateboard, whether it be longboard, surf skate or whatever, wear all the padded equipment, because when I didn't, I wore the badge of courage too many times and it didn't fit me well. So think about that. Because I had so many years skiing to start with, I kind of got about as good as I felt I could get, because I didn't have anybody helping you like we're trying to do for you guys. So I was pretty much self-taught. So I got into snowboarding because it actually was easier on my body, and it gave me an opportunity to focus on things, and instead of just sliding and riding, actually to start to study the mechanics of how the body works. And if I couldn't tell you how I ride, I couldn't help any of you. So I'm very body orientated. It's more freedom, it's more relaxing. It's easier to do once you get into it, even if you're doing it wrong. Where skiing is so technically correct and so mass to be perfect, that I found I liked a sport where you could be imperfect and still enjoy it.
I skied. I had an injury to my leg when I was 16. By the time I hit about 25, the leg wouldn't hold up skiing, and I stopped skiing altogether. 20 years on, more than that actually, my daughter was taking beginner lessons. My wife was teaching her and said, you take her out, you can do it, stay on the bunny hill, you'll be fine. And I went on the bunny hill and I saw people on snowboards, and I didn't know what I was looking at. It was really interesting. And I asked my daughter, and she said, oh, that's snowboarding. And then I asked one of my classes, and they said, oh yeah, and you do it like this. And they showed me some motions, and I thought, oh, I can do that with my knees, that'll be okay. So I went out and tried to teach myself how to snowboard. I knew how to fall down because I had done judo for many years. So we flapped and bounced off of the ground for 6.5 hours in 2 sessions. And I managed to get down the bunny slope and make turns and do stuff, and that was the beginning, and it's just been a blast ever since.
And then you went on about all the protective gear.
No. I went and slammed myself around for another 10 years without instruction. And then I finally got instruction. Even when we're talking about doing this and getting hurt, no, the majority of time, no, we don't. And the majority of time, I mean, we're out on the slopes
A lot.
a lot, and no, we're both solid here.
We drive a car. Do you scratch it occasionally?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you bump it occasionally? Yes. You hope not. That's kind of how we look at the snowboarding too.
Yeah.
None of what happens was planned. It's just a momentary section where Mother Nature says, aha, you think you got it? Maybe you don't.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of boarding and skiing. It happens. So YouTube bloggers, there are lots. There are lots and lots of people. But the problem I have with the YouTube blogging is that many people put the word professional onto themselves, on the titles. They're not, they don't have the training. They have a lot of experience going out and riding. But if you pay attention, I don't think you'll see the experience in the human part where it comes back to you as a student or to help you. So I find very few that are helpful. The ones that are helpful, angry snowboarder, even though his disposition can be grumpy to some of you, and he might say, I'm gonna rip your heart out. He doesn't really mean it. It's just his dialogue for humor. It's a dark side, like Dad said. I love snowboard addiction because they go into cause and effect. And of course, I like what we do because we're not trying to run a business. We're just trying to pay it forward.
I will watch the Angry Snowboarder because I get a kick out of him, and his understanding of technical things and his comprehension of how this is all put together in mechanics is just fantastic. It's wonderful to listen to, and it's frightening to find out that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't have any clue about. Other than that, I'll periodically watch something because I look at the snowboarding channels, the bloggers. A lot of them they're entertaining, and they're entertaining an age group that's not necessarily mine.
Although we do want to scale ours from the beginning, little ones, through the oldest ones we can find. We're not just about old people. We're about every person who wants to slide on a snowboard.
And that's more and for me it's more personal. So my entertainment, it's limited on watching other snowboard. Basically, I want to be out in the snow doing what I do. Yeah. $42. I'm done.
Okay, so she said, somebody said, what's the meaning of life? Keep it short. Are you kidding? Keep it short. We're trying to keep it longer. There's no point in talking about it. If life isn't longer, you haven't had enough fun. You haven't bought enough toys. You haven't experienced it enough. Don't leave life on a short note. Leave it doing something stupid on your bucket list.
Yeah, there you go.